What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Hopefully you have subscribed on iTunes or Google Play or YouTube or not SoundCloud. Yeah, SoundCloud? No, not SoundCloud. No. Not Spotify either. Spotify's actually really hard to get a podcast on for some reason, but, you know, obviously you're listening to the show right now, and if you are, thank you so much for being here again. This week on the show, we have our guest. His name is Ricky Delgado. Met this man on Twitter, through the Twitter sphere. Basically, discusses his history with gaming. Also discusses something I didn't think about, as English isn't his first language. So we get to hear kind of how that played a role in his history with gaming. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter, or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Without further ado, let's get things started with Ricky Delgado. Do you remember what initially got you started playing games? Was it a family member? Was it a friend? Was it some commercial you saw or a kiosk at a store? Do you remember what initially got you started?
My brother. He had a excuse me. He had a Nintendo, the original Nintendo, and he also had a Game Gear, and those were the two consoles that I actually started playing for the very first time. I think the first game that I played was between Knight Rider and Indiana Jones.
Wow, that's a good just Knight Rider and Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Like, was it? I'm trying to think. I don't remember. Of course, obviously those were games, right? Like,
yeah,
a product of the time. Of course, there was a Knight Rider game. Of course, it was Indiana Jones. What was a Knight Rider? Was a Knight Rider game on foot, or was it more on car?
It was on car. You're basically just driving down, and you're just shooting down cars in front of you. I mean, there's not much into it. Your car is just going forward, and all you can do is just move side to side, excuse me, to avoid oncoming traffic, while at the same time you're just shooting the enemies.
Fair enough. I didn't know if David Hasselhoff did motion capture. I'm just kidding. It's a Nintendo game. Of course he didn't do motion capture. Was there did you hear Kit talk and all that shit? Or what? No, there wasn't any voice. I mean, it was just mostly text on screen, probably.
Yeah.
Of course. I keep thinking of I would just love if somebody just out of nowhere made just a Knight Rider game now. Like some indie studio just bullshitted and of course, I don't know if you can get the Knight Rider license, but just straight have Hasselhoff show up, do some lines, have Kit do their line. Oh, yeah, they would have to get a new kit, but whatever, that's fine. But no, I mean that's just, of course, there's that, and then Indiana Jones. Obviously that was just on foot, just doing shit. I'm assuming that I'm only thinking of an Indiana Jones game as a Castlevania-esque game where there's a whip and maybe a gun. I'm assuming that's probably all it was.
I can't remember if there was a gun. I know that there was a whip.
Of course, yeah, there definitely
you had a swing back and forth between the stages because obviously you have to continue going up. This is more like a passive platformer kind of game.
Do you remember if they based it off just one movie or was it some new adventure? Because I know I loved how in Nintendo days, if there was no movie but the franchise was still strong, they would just create a fucking story like Goonies 2. They were just whatever, it's Goonies, we're just gonna make our own shit up.
I know it was I want to say it was based on The Last Crusade.
Oh, okay, cool.
The title of the game.
Right. Yeah, I just loved how Nintendo they just didn't give a shit. They're just yo man, Goonies 2, and they're where's the Goonies 2 movie to go with this? Or why don't you just make a game off the first Goonies and see how that... Nope, Goonies 2, some weird new story. And, obviously there's people out there that would love to have an actual Goonies 2 movie, but we have to settle for this. It's just always fun. So obviously you kind of mentioned you had a brother playing games with you. Did you, was it just the one brother you had, or did you have other siblings as well playing games?
No, I had two older brothers, but mainly the oldest one, he was actually the one that had the consoles. I would actually sneak into his room while he was at school, because I was young. I think I was around 5, 6. I can't remember my actual age. But I remember just sneaking into his room, try to play as many video games as I could before he got home, because he would basically get mad Eventually, he actually did find out because I'll never put everything back like it was. But from there, a couple years later, whenever the Game Boy came out, my dad actually ended up buying both of us, well, a Game Boy for him and a Game Boy for me. And then that's when I actually experienced Pokemon. And I think the first version that I actually had was Blue.
That's all. I mean, by the way, shout out to your dad for recognizing that, hey, I need to get 2 of these so that way my kids don't kill each other. Like, good job, Dad. Because, yeah, I mean, there's always that line, like, how much older was your brother?
He's actually a lot older than me.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. Because I think there's, like, a certain age where if you're a big brother and you're, like, say if your little brother's, like, 2 years younger than you, then it's kind of cool, you know, because you're close to the same age, you know, and you know, have similar interests, and, you know, it's kind of cool to have somebody there to play with all the time and stuff. Obviously, I'm sure, you know, those people still fight and they're brothers or whatever. But when you have like a sibling that's like so much older, that's when they're like, I'm into all this shit and you're into kid shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's where they gotta get like, no, I don't want to play with you. Like you're a kid, you're into kid things. But of course I can imagine him having all this stuff in his room and you show up, and of course you probably thought you were sneaky, but like, I'm assuming you just left shit out. And he's like,
I really did.
Yeah, like, why is that doing? What's going on here? So then, was he into? So you got a Game Boy. Was it the OG Game Boy, like the big gray brick that could kill somebody?
Yes, the big gray brick.
Big gray brick that can kill somebody. Green screen. Yep. And then Pokemon. Did he get him? So both of you guys got it. Did you guys each get Pokemon? Were you guys kind of playing together, or was your brother into other stuff?
Actually, I don't know what game he got for his game. I know I have Pokemon because I chose it, but I don't know what game he actually got. Because from there is when we actually started splitting ways. He started playing his games. There was very little games that I actually played for the Game Boy. Because, of course, back then, my dad was just trying to buy things for both of us. So, obviously, financially wise, he couldn't always buy games for both systems. So for the only game I really had was just for Pokemon. Now that I'm thinking about it.
And to be honest, I mean, Pokemon as far as it goes, I mean, dude, Pokemon for a little kid, that's enough. Like, that's a lot of shit to do. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things to do, especially, you know, like, trying to, the whole catch them all, right? Yeah, I mean, you could do that, but also still just the fact that you can do the game over and over. You can, once you beat the Elite Four, you can go do it over and over. Collecting, leveling up, like, that is a good game that can give a kid countless hours of enjoyment without having to worry really about a second game. Because I was in the same boat with you where I got a Game Boy Color, which was my first one. I didn't have the big gray brick, but I had the Game Boy Color, and yeah, I mean, like, I didn't own other games besides Pokemon for my Game Boy. I really didn't. Like, I had Pokemon Blue until Silver came out. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't screw around with other games, really. I had friends that had other games, you know. They had Link's Awakening. They had, or the Link, I think it was Link's Awakening, or Link DX, whatever it was called. They had Tetris. Like, they had other games, so I experienced those games. But when it came to myself, I didn't have any, because I was in the same boat, right? My parents weren't well off. Like, I got a game for my birthday and a game for Christmas. That was the loop. And, yeah, I mean, I had Pokemon Blue forever until Silver came out, and I was like, yeah, I'm getting Silver. Like, I literally didn't even look at other Game Boy franchises at the time.
Yeah. I'm trying to think now. But yeah, once I had because I remember I had the original Game Boy. Then from there, I want to say I ended up getting the Super Nintendo. And growing up, obviously, from the Super Nintendo, I was able to get the Sega Genesis, Game Boy Color, PlayStation, PS1, Xbox 360, PS3, PS4, now PC, and obviously Nintendo Switch now. So growing up, I only had like 1 or 2 games for every console that I've ever owned.
Right. Yeah. So when as you were growing up, did your brother eventually like, did you and your brother kind of trade off on, like, what games you would get, or was it to that point when kind of your brother's a lot, you know, like you said, your brother's a big age difference from you. Did he ever get to a point where you kind of stopped playing games, or has he still been a gamer?
He
and
did.
You guys, yeah, like I was going to say, because sometimes something will drive people away from gaming, whether it's permanently or whether it's for a good amount of time. Sometimes it's sports or another hobby or women or a job or college. You know, sometimes people will stray away from gaming, but, you know, sometimes people still stick with it. But did it get to a point where he was kind of like done with gaming and then you kind of became the person in the house to play games? Because you said you had another brother as well. Did he ever play games early?
No, yeah, my second brother, he was never into gaming. It was only my oldest one. And he basically dropped off after the Game Boy.
Yeah, I mean, because for whatever reason, I mean, people, like I said, find new interests. I stopped playing video games for like 4 years when I found skateboarding. I didn't want to do a single thing besides skateboarding. So, unless it was a Tony Hawk game, that's the only game that would make me come back to it. So, no, that makes sense. So then, did you have friends in the neighborhood where you would did you have like, because Pokemon, that's the other thing too, is Pokemon was the first Game Boy game that like really introduced you wanting to play with other people, like battling, trading, all that stuff. Did you have friends like within your neighborhood or your class or anything that would play games or, you know, specifically do things like Pokemon?
No, yeah. Growing up, I was very shy and everything. I did have a couple of friends where we just go and play, but it was never as safe to play outside. So I will always play video games myself. Not many people knew that I actually played video games back then. But when I moved to the States, the first game that I traveled with to Puerto Rico back to see all my old friends, it was the Xbox 360. The game that I ended up taking with me was the Need for Speed, the original one. And then once my best friend saw me over there, that's basically my whole vacation. We just spend the time at his house playing, trying to beat the game, decaling cars how we wanted to, and then just have fun. Again, just staying up till late.
So you said you lived in Puerto Rico. When did you move to the United States?
1999.
So because that's the other thing that one thing that I like about this too is that, you know, I get to hear people's different stories and everything. I mean, the problem is like, I'm sure you were younger, so I'm sure you didn't know as well, but like, was gaming easier, or like, was it harder? Was it more niche to like find games then, I wonder? Like, you know, I'm just trying to think of it that way.
When I actually moved here, I didn't know how to speak English. I didn't know how to read. I didn't know how to write. So, to be honest, during that period, I actually strayed away from video gaming for a while. Just because to me, I didn't understand it.
Right.
And back then, they didn't have the options to be able to select the multiple different languages as you can now. So, if I would play a video game, it was just literally just to play it. I didn't understand why I was doing things, why is the reason that this character is doing that, where am I supposed to go. So a lot of times I would actually just get stuck playing video games. And that was just because the language barrier. So what I would actually do was just go out and play it outside.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I mean, especially with certain types of games, right? I mean, obviously things like sports games, fighting games, not much reading or anything were required. You know what I mean? You could just kind of play those because as long as you got the idea of like the sport, then you can understand the game and just play it that way. But I can't even imagine. I mean, obviously gaming is considerably better now when it comes to being more accessible to different languages, being more accessible to, like, one thing that threw me off that I didn't even think about was people who are colorblind. My brother-in-law is colorblind. So, like, certain games would mess with him. Like, he couldn't see certain things. Like, he couldn't tell the difference in a puzzle because of colorblind. He couldn't tell in certain shooters who was enemies and who weren't because of the colors that they chose for choosing enemies and stuff. Like, there's so many things now that they've done to make gaming more accessible, which is great, but I can't even imagine not being able to understand a language in a game like Pokemon. Like, you don't know you have to get, it tells you go to specific people, go to specific locations. How, like, there's no way you can play a game like that. Like, yeah, obviously you can screw around with it until you get to a certain point and you get stuck. And yeah, I can imagine just being pissed off and being like, yeah, I'm done with this, because not being able to understand the game would be very frustrating. And that's one thing I noticed too later on. Of course, I don't notice this when I'm a kid, but when I was looking at the back of like a Pokemon game, for example, like Nintendo's pretty good about, kind of like telling parents what's up. But on the back of the game now, it actually said basic reading ability needed to fully enjoy this game. And I was like, at least they tell people what's up. Like, hey, well, I mean, the thing is, like, again, there's kids out there who are 4, 5, and 6 who just can't read, and it makes sense. But yeah, dude, like, I at least now know that it's cool that they're putting that on there, but also it's great that accessibility is out there now to where that's not a problem for people.
Correct. And because of those kind of issues, mainly the type of games that I actually used to play were more like your racing kind of games. So, because obviously racing, you really don't need anything to actually understand what you have to do. You just press the gas, go, try to win first place.
Yeah, exactly.
So, growing up, that was mainly the main type of game that I actually stuck to, that genre. It wasn't, of course, to now a lot older in age. Now I'm able to actually read. I'm able to understand, have that mentality of being able to solve puzzles and things like that. So just actually, as of recently, I just started venturing into other genres in gaming.
Yeah, because you mentioned earlier you were playing Ni no Kuni, and I was like, dude, if you didn't know English, you're not fucking playing that. Like, you're just not. But yeah, that's what I was mentioning. Like, the racing, I forgot about racing games. Like, racing games, fighting games,
shooting games.
Shooting games, right. There's not much story to it, but like, any RPG probably, that, of course, that's not happening. And of course, everybody wants to say Pokemon is like Little Tyke's my first RPG, because I mean, it's basic turn-based game with collecting abilities, so and upgrading abilities. It's basically like, baby's RPG, but go fuck yourself, people. Pokemon's still fun. But like anything that involves reading, but even some games, like just some action adventure games that require reading, that require you to go to X area or save X person. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like you can only go so far. Here's what's shitty too. Back in the day, some games were so bad about just explaining where to go that even if you could fucking read, it didn't matter. Like, it was still like, I can read fine, and I cannot understand what this thing is telling me to do. The perfect example that I always say is Silent Hill on PS1.
I remember that game.
In that game, there is a particular puzzle that's near the end of the game that me and my friends went through every fucking scrap of paper, every book, everything in the game to try to figure out the puzzle and decipher how to get past this one thing. Really? And I swear to God, Konami fucking forgot to put that in the game. Like, I'm not kidding you. There's nothing in that game that tells you how to do that puzzle. I don't give a shit. We went through everything, and then we eventually got to a point where we got so frustrated, my buddy went and bought the strategy guide, because that was before the internet was like a relevant thing, and people put strategy guides on the internet and shit. He went and got the strategy guide. He's like, guys, we gotta fucking beat this game. And we literally skipped past everything until we got to that last part, and then we were like, yay, here's how you do this puzzle. I'm like, this is so fucking stupid. And I mean, that it's weird now because so many people make fun of like DLC and pay to win. Fucking Silent Hill's pay to win was buying a strategy guide. There was no way to figure out that puzzle without it. And as soon as we got that puzzle done, we beat the game and it was cool. But I was just like, yeah, that's how it was then. But like I said, even if you knew English, tell me where the fuck to find the area to fix that puzzle. I don't know. And that was back when we had all the time in the world to play games. So you can't just say, oh, you didn't look hard enough. No, we did. Like, every one of my friends looked hard enough, and we just couldn't figure it out. So,
no, yeah, it's funny because now I just actually sit down and start to think. Like, when I go to the game stores, to the big box retailers and things like that, and people ask me, it's like, oh, so what games are you interested in? I'm like, Well, I'm thinking about this specific game. Like I have mentioned, I just got Skyrim for the first time. I've never played it in my life. So a lot of people are like, "Oh wow, you haven't played this game? Like, do you know how many versions of this game has came out?" But like I said, I had that language barrier for a very long time, so I never actually got experience even Final Fantasy games. I never really, to this day, I still haven't even played a single fantasy game.
Yeah, I mean, that, dude, yeah, I can imagine though. I mean, you moved here to the States in 99. Before 99, there was a shit ton of RPGs. Like, a lot of them. Like, a lot of them. That I could imagine, like I said, you haven't even touched yet. And there's certain games that, there's games I didn't play only for the reason I didn't have the console, right? I didn't get into Super Nintendo as much because I didn't have a Super. I had a Genesis instead. But, like, you didn't get into them because you couldn't understand the games. That's
Exactly.
like a completely different scenario. Like, I had the ability to. I just decided to choose Sega Genesis like an idiot instead of a Super Nintendo. Mine was more moronic. Yours was more, like, not an option. Like, you just couldn't understand it. So, have you... Obviously, you got Skyrim for Switch, which... I mean, it came all with all the DLC, so you're good, right? Like, no problems there. But also, Switch or Skyrim on the go is like people's dream. So, I mean, at least you're getting it the way people wish they could have when it first came out. Because if you told people you could take Skyrim everywhere, people would have done it in a fucking heartbeat. So, at least you got that going for you. Have you attempted to go back to play any of those like must-play games or whatever that people say? I mean, obviously you said you haven't played Final Fantasy, but have you gone back to play any other like classic RPGs that you may have missed back in the day?
I'm slowly building my collection. Right next to me, actually, I reacquired the original PlayStation, the big boxy one,
The big gray one, yeah.
Yeah, I also have a retro bit trio that actually plays the Sega Genesis, the NES, the SNES. So I'm slowly actually going back and trying to collect some of the games that I actually play, plus trying to see what actually was out there that I actually missed for these consoles. Because to my knowledge, there were so many amazing games back then, but I just couldn't play them.
Right. No,
So,
yeah, and that makes complete sense.
But yeah, so I'm slowly going back. Right now, I want to say, what is the I have? I have one of the ones that I was surprised with was somebody got me the original DuckTales game. So I was
There you go.
playing that. So that game, I'm like noticing the type of games back then to now. Yo, you actually have to have skill as a gamer to actually play this, because I'm just like, what the hell? I'm just trying to jump. Why can't I just make it just platform? But no.
No, like I completely understand where you're coming from, because yeah, gaming. People want to say Cuphead's hard. Go fuck yourself. Go play an old game, like an old game, the hard ones. Go tell me like Cuphead's hard when you go back and play some of those games. Now, the only defense I'll say is some of those games, the platforming or whatever it was, just straight sucks. So that's kind of the problem, is that like it's not the game that's hard. It's like the mechanics of it that aren't that great, like, jumping isn't as, like fluid as it normally should be.
Exactly.
That's where you have to kind of get around the shitty programming side of it. But also, too, some games have that like charm where it doesn't matter. Like, some people will say Mega Man's hard, and to me it is. But then you look at other people who have played Mega Man, and that was their jam, and they're able to just fly through it. Like, this isn't hard at all. You're just getting used to the way the mechanics were back then compared to now. Like, when a game's hard now, I think it's just people are just saying other games are so easy that they've conditioned themselves to just think gaming's not hard as a medium. But, like, there are games out there that will kick your face in over and over, like Cuphead, like Dark Souls. Like, you know what I mean? There are games out there that their pride, I'm not going to say Cuphead's proud that it's a hard game, but I also think that somewhere deep down, they're like kind of happy that people aren't just able to breeze through it.
Yeah, me and Dark Souls don't get along.
Yeah.
I try to play Dark Souls 1. I have Dark Souls 3 on my PC. And yeah, I think I'm still waiting on trying to be the second boss.
Yeah, that's a series, like, for me, there's levels to it. There's levels where, okay, here's a game that's really hard. Now, if you can get me started, just get me started being able to, like, do stuff, and then it gets harder as progression happens. I expect that, right? You don't want a game just to stay easy the whole time. You don't want to feel like you're so overpowered the whole time. So, like, I like when a game gets difficult as you go along. That makes sense. That's called progression. But if a game is kicking your face in the dirt 5 minutes in, I'm not cool with that. Like, I'm like, no, like, you're coming on too strong, dude. Like, stop. I can't do this. This is way too hard right now. And that's exactly how I felt with Bloodborne. And you can call me a bitch, whatever. I don't care. But like my brother-in-law brought over Bloodborne, and I was like, all right, I'll give this a try because everybody says it's like Dark Souls and it's fun. I was getting my face kicked in as soon as you start the game, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm not playing this game. I'm not doing this shit. I don't have much time to play games, and the time I'm going to play games, I'm not going to be sitting here getting really pissed off at a game.
Exactly. And to be honest, I'm actually on the same boat as you. I still haven't even... I have the game. I have not passed the intro where you actually have to leave that spider-looking monster.
Yeah, fuck that thing, right? Like seriously, that thing is a pain in the ass. And I'm like, again, I think it's just that game was made with a certain clientele and certain audience in mind, and I'm clearly not that audience. Like, I don't get it. Now, again, like, if somebody took the time to say, well, here's what you do, here's how you do this, I would be like, cool, that makes more sense. But dude, like, man, when, like, there's nobody there to kind of, like, and I'm not saying the game should hold your hand, but just shit, like, the game, I would hope games wouldn't expect you to know a certain genre type to be good at the game to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, I would hope most games would try to be accessible to everybody, and then as you play the game, start getting harder. Like, that makes more sense to me. But when a game is so hard right off the bat, it's a huge turnoff. I just, like, no, I don't want to play your game and just sit here and be all pissed off. Like, that doesn't sound fun.
Now, a game that I can actually kind of relate to that, where at the very beginning, yes, it's hard and everything, but you're not really hard. You just die a lot. And it's actually a game that I just acquired. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called Immortal Redneck. And basically the whole gist of it is you're going into it's a first-person shooter puzzle game. Whenever you start this game, your character is so weak that as soon as you go into the level, yes, you actually die. But the good thing about it is the more you die, you're able to keep any type of coins and everything that you acquire in the game. Then you're able to go to the actual skill level of tree and scale up your character. That makes it a lot easier to actually go to the game and get further and further into the game until you can actually beat the boss and everything at the very end. Now, things like that I'm okay with, but a game, like I said, like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, that it's just straight hard. It's ridiculous. We'll say they're amazing games, they're beautiful and everything, but me, I just can't get into it.
Well, and like, let me see here. Yeah, it was cutting in and out, but I was able to catch it. So games that are like, see, that type of game though that you just described, where as you're dying, you're still keeping your skill points and all that stuff and like progressing forward. That makes more sense because there's other games that are like that as well. So I don't think I would be as mad about that, you know, because like, for example, like certain games, as you play them, even if you die, they still let you keep the upgrade or the skill points or the money or whatever it is, whatever, you know, the currency is, or at least they still do that. But also too, I'm cool with that because doing that, you at least are progressing to a point where eventually, if you try enough times, you'll get to the point where you can progress forward, right? Same thing, like, you know, with, I'm trying to think of like games like God of War. I've gotten stuck on certain bosses because I'm just like, wow, I'm just not prepared right now, or I'm just not doing the things. But I mean, at least still going through, you can do that. I don't know. I'm trying to think now. I don't think you can keep the progression. But here's what I was going to mention. Certain games, if a boss has like different health levels or different stages, at least if you can get to one part of that stage when you die and come back, you're at that part, not the very beginning, you know? So at least some games do that, where instead of you progressing, keeping stuff, at least if you kill a boss to a certain extent, when you come back, you're not having to redo it from the beginning. Cuphead is straight not like that. Cuphead does not give a shit. Cuphead's like, dude, the worst is there's a series of bosses that, and everybody who's played that game knows exactly where I'm talking about. There's a part right before the final boss where you have to roll these dice and then you land on certain spots. It's like a game, like a board game almost. So you roll and land on certain spots and you have to beat the enemy, right? And then you could, depending on how well you roll the dice and how, like, what your luck is, you can play and fight only 1 or 2 bosses and then get to the final person. Or you might have to fight 4, 5, 6 bosses and then fight the final person. So it's completely at random and it's completely up to chance, right? The problem is that if you get to boss 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, they don't give a shit. You die, you go back and you try your luck again. And it is...
Really?
Yeah. And it can be quite frustrating, but also too, like, you could have 3 runs where you're like, fuck, man, I gotta fight 3 people. I gotta fight 4 people. This sucks. But then the next one, you only gotta fight 2 people and you're done. So, again, though, Cuphead's that outlier where I personally... Can the game get frustrating? Yes. But I also don't feel the game is unfair at all. Like, that's the difference. Like, certain games, you will get to a point where you're like, this is unfair. Like, this is bullshit. I can't, you know, this character is... That game, the controls are tight. It is... You know exactly why you died in the game. There's no, like, nonsense out of nowhere. Like, what the fuck? What just happened? Why'd I die? You will never say that in Cuphead. You will know why you died, and you just have to get to a point where you learn a way to figure out that part. Same thing with, like, boss progressions. Like, the worst one that I remember just being so pissed off was the original Ninja Gaiden. And let me rephrase that. Ninja Gaiden on the original Xbox. So, Ninja Gaiden 1 on the original Xbox. That game is fucking hard, right? Now, I know people that can beat that game. I have never been able to beat the game. It's just a very difficult game. But Alma... And everybody knows Alma's a fucking bitch in that game. She's just not fun. You will fight her, and I was fighting her, and I was doing well. And then she had like a sliver of life left, and I had hope. And then she did some next level shit I've never seen her do. Hit me one time, killed me, and that was the only time I ever threw my controller across the room. I fucking stood up and just whipped it across my apartment and went to bed. I was so pissed off.
Nice.
And then... Guess what? And here's the other thing that's frustrating too. And I'm sure I wonder if you've had the same thing. I came back the next day and beat her first try.
I don't remember. I don't remember if I came across that. Now I do remember getting pissed off at a game. Like, all right, I'm done. Come back the next day, and of course, load up in that same exact spot right when you die. So I'm just like, God damn it!
Yeah, like, there's modes, I don't know what it is, right? I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know if it's just in your head you're all fucked up because you're mad. But, like, there's been times where, and it happened in Cuphead, too, where I got to a point and I got stuck, and I'm like, shit. And I started get mad. Of course, now I don't throw my controller anymore. Like, let me rephrase that. I don't throw my controller across the room anymore. Like, I'll still get pissed and just be like, throw it in my couch and walk away. But... Dude, that was a bad day. Like, I walked back in. I used to work at the game store at the time, and I walked into the game store. I was like, I need a new controller. They were like, why? And I'm like, Ninja Gaiden. They're like, okay. Like, they understood. But no, like, that happened, though. Like, Cuphead, I was getting frustrated. I was like, shit, I can't get past this. All right, I'm done for the night. And I came back, and literally the very next try, I was fresh, I was good, mine was clear, and I beat it right away. And I was like, oh, well, that's weird.
Now, that actually just happened to me, though, but it was been with puzzles. I forgot what game it was, but I remember I was stuck in this level for like several hours. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was getting a headache, and I was like, you know what? I'm done. I did come back the next day, and it was all it was is just that I forgot one piece to the puzzle that I had to go pick up and bring it back. But yeah, no, yeah, it comes because you just mentally fatigued, that you're so tired that you're not even thinking and you're just mixing all the little things that you just need to do just to accomplish.
Yeah, like I said, now then you come back and you're cool. Like, and the other thing too, I didn't even think about this. I can't even imagine you having that frustrations when you couldn't even understand the game at times. Like,
oh yeah,
it's not even a matter of like your gaming skill. It's a matter of like, because I don't understand this language, I can't understand what to do.
No, exactly. There's a lot of side missions that I never completed. There's actually a lot of storylines that I never completed just because you needed to do something and I didn't know where to go. Definitely puzzles, forget them.
But like, yeah, what puzzles? I need to know language and I need to know to deciphering this puzzle. No, thank you.
Yeah, no.
Wow. Like, so then so you moved here in 99. How old were you?
I was 11.
Okay. So then throughout the years, obviously you're picking up English, you're writing, you're understanding the language and everything. Is that when, like what systems were you into around that time then? So was it like PS2, Xbox, GameCube, like that type of stuff?
No, I still continue to have systems. I had the original PlayStation that came out, the big boxy one. Then I had the PS1. Then I went to vacation to New York to visit my aunt and my cousin for Christmas. He ended up getting the original Xbox. And I remember telling my dad, it's like, Dad, I want that. Let me get that. And, of course, once we came back, he actually got it for me. So I started playing some games. I mean, at that point, I was able to understand English a little bit more.
Right.
I wasn't as good when it came to the reading it. I was able to speak it and I was able to understand it.
Right.
So as long as the game spoke what I needed to do, okay, I was able to figure it out and go to those levels, missions, side quests that I was able to complete. But if you actually have me reading, forget it. It ain't gonna get done.
Well, around the original Xbox, though, too. Like, and I mean, PlayStation was getting to the point where it was getting like this, too. Of course, the voice acting in PlayStation 1 games was just god-awful.
Yep.
Resident Evil 1. Just want to fucking laugh. Go to YouTube and look up Resident Evil 1, like, voiceovers. It's ridiculous. But, yeah, I mean, like, at least during that time is when... It depends on the game, I guess, right? Because... some games, like RPGs, still had more text-based stuff because just there's so much dialogue in the game, right? To have all of that be full voice acting, which obviously things are now. And even some games still don't have voice acting. You know what I mean? Some games are still text-based. But to have games that are like voice acted, at least starting with original Xbox and stuff, it got better. You know what I mean? So I can imagine that. So was there... around that time, was it like getting better as far as like, were you able to choose Spanish in any games or anything? Like, were you able to do Spanish subtitles or anything like that? Because I'm trying to remember when that became a thing. Because maybe it was like PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 eras when that started becoming more popular.
Sure.
Yeah, because like you still obviously ran into situations where you weren't able to understand the games. Because like you said, you were able to say it and listen to it and understand it. Just writing and reading part of it was the problem. So yeah, I mean. So you were still at the time around then when there were still even times harder for you to play games?
Yes, but I guess because everything that I went through, I never really paid attention or even had the desire to even like, oh, let me try Final Fantasy.
Right.
To me, I just stuck to my safety net, my safe zone, and just went straight playing your Forza games, your Gran Turismo's, your Black Ops when it came out. What was that name? I believe it says Black.
Yeah, Black, the shooter game. Yeah.
Yeah. So those kind of games, you're Tony Hawk, your skating, your snowboarding, your kind of somewhat of your sports game. Those were basically my safety net. That's on the genre realm that I just stuck to. And because I'm so tired of it, even with PlayStation 4, I think the craziest, I guess, RPG game that I've got into was GTA 5. Because even with San Andreas, and what was the other one, Vice City, I played them, but there were a lot of things I still didn't understand, just because I never really played those type of games, so I didn't really understand all the mechanics and everything that I'm into it. So, to be honest, the system that I actually got out of my way, because I still have this issue, was the Switch. So with the Switch, I'm sure, like I said, this is the first time that I'm playing Skyrim. So of course now I have the benefit that not many people have. I can actually pick up the game and say, "Damn, this is a good game," versus you that probably play multiple RPGs and everything. You're fans who are like, "Damn, I need a new one. I need a second episode. No, come on, second episode come out." To me, I'm experiencing this for the first time. I'm happy talking. I don't need the second one as yet. So,
yeah, no, I can understand that and everything, and yeah, for whatever reason, I don't know why, man, your audio keeps cutting like in and out. Like there's times where it's good and then times where it's like rough. But you were mentioning, you know, like obviously you didn't play certain games and everything, you know, like you obviously, it's not even a matter of like you didn't want to play them because you didn't like them or whatever. You just like now you're getting, see, here's the thing though, it's like, even though you're missing out on some of those games, right? Like, and I'm not saying don't go back and play Vice City or San Andreas or any of those games, right? But the thing is now, at least, is you're getting the better versions of them. You know what I mean? Like, you're getting the more refined versions of all those games that you say you didn't get a chance to play. Like, GTA 5 is the ultimate version of all of those games you mentioned. You know, Vice City, San Andreas. Like, it's the better of all of them. So, I mean, in a way, yeah, you didn't get a chance to experience them, but that's the problem when it comes to gaming now is that, you know, when people say, "Oh man, Skyrim's good, you should go play Morrowind." Real quick, you go back and play Morrowind, you might not like it because it's not as refined of a game as Skyrim is. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't have the same things that we've now gotten attached to. Like, that's kind of the problem when it comes to going back and playing some of those older games that people recommend, because control-wise, gameplay-wise, just the way that gaming was 15 years ago compared to now is so different. You know what I mean? So it's hard to go back and play games sometimes because you go back and you're like, wow, these controls suck. Now, did the controls suck back then? No. Do they suck compared to what they are now? Yeah, because now they've refined that genre. They know how to make that type of game now. Like, go back and, you know, like GoldenEye on 64. Yeah, like, what I'm saying is like, that's a game, like, now you look at, like, a controller that we have now that has 2 joysticks and is, like, has triggers and it's, like, perfect for shooters. You know what I mean? They've evolved controllers and the controls within the game to be better with shooters, but, like, going back and playing some old games, man, you're just like, this game plays like shit. Like, look at, I said it before, but Resident Evil, look at the tank controls in that game, where you're, like, you're turning and then running. Like, Tomb Raider 1 had tank controls, and it was fucking terrible. Now, gaming has gotten to a point where we're controlling characters better. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, in a way, you missed out on those games. But, in a way, you're also getting the better experience. Like, right now, you're getting Skyrim with all the DLC already. You're getting it with all the bugs, hopefully, worked out. Bethesda, you can't fucking tell. Like, their games are broken all the time. But you're getting, like, the better version of the game. And to now, the equivalent of that is your Game of the Year editions. You know what I mean? Like, yep. You could buy a game day one, and you can enjoy it immediately. And you can wait for DLC and enjoy that later. You can, you know, if there's bugs in the game, you have to deal with it until they get sorted out. Or you wait a year or two or whatever and just buy a Game of the Year edition that's cheaper or the same cost that has all that shit, that has all the bugs worked out. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with the way you're going with getting Skyrim now for Switch, because it has all that shit, right? It's already fixed, it's already done, like it's all good. But no, like that also applies though, just going back to playing any old games. And I'm sure have you run across that with the Retron 3 you were talking about, like the older games?
Yeah, a lot of the games, even playing the original Mario games, I'm just like, damn, I replayed this when I was little. Was I that much better when I was little compared to now? But no, yeah, it happens.
Yeah, it's hard because like some games you think, do I suck at games now, or were these just not great games to control to begin with? You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that I always think of. Like, do I suck now? I would hope not, but is it just the fact that this game is just not an easy game to control? Or did I have more time as a kid to be more patient? Like there's all these things you want to think about, but there's certain games that people tell me like, this game brings back a certain memory that's amazing. And then I go and play it and I'm like, fuck that, dude. No, thank you. Like that just it's not fun. But I mean, like I said, now it's kind of the inverse, because we mentioned it earlier that people say games are too easy now and they hold your hand and they do all this stuff. But then a game like Cuphead comes out and people are like, what the fuck? Why is it so hard? like just, I don't know. You can't make everybody happy, but at least, you're getting to experience things now. Like it doesn't matter when you play Skyrim. The fact that you're able to play Skyrim is good. And I'm sure, like I was going to mention, if you were to say get like an NES Classic or an SNES Classic, you could have just RPGs up the ass that are still good that you can go back and experience now, like Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, Mario RPG, like Final Fantasy 3. Like you could go play all of those now, understanding English and understanding like the actual what's going on in the story. And I'm sure you'd have a blast playing those. But those are games that, for the most part, are good no matter what. I mean, just they had their shit together back then to where you could play the game 20 years later and it's still good.
Yep. No, I actually did get to play the Mario RPG. So that was actually one of my wish list predictions for this E3. Hey, come and make a remake or make Mario RPG 2 for the Switch.
Yeah. I mean, they could do that. I mean, if they got Square to do it, they could do that. Paper Mario kinda is like that. So if you haven't checked out Paper Mario, check that out. It's sorta. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Nintendo 64.
Well, they had it for 64. They also had one for GameCube. Like
play the 64 version.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's kind of now. I mean, the other one too that, I mean, it's not on Switch or whatever, but the Mario and Luigi series for the 3DS, those are really good fun RPGs as well. Like those kind of harken back to Super Mario RPG-esque times, like, but yeah, I mean, it would be cool to see them come out with a new Mario and Luigi game or a Paper Mario game or a Mario RPG 2, because I think that is one genre for Mario that would be I mean, again, to be honest, any genre of Mario on a Switch would be fun. Like, they came out with Mario Rabbids, which is like a strategy game. Of course, Mario Kart, Mario Tennis is coming out. I mean, it sounds dumb, but literally putting Mario in most games makes those games more fun, just in general.
Yep.
Mario Tennis especially. Like, Ryan Scott went on Twitter and said, like, Mario Tennis is the best tennis game since Top Spin 2. And I was like, holy shit, it's been fucking forever since Top Spin 2 came out. Like, you want a really good tennis game? And he goes, and he said too, he's like, it's crazy that it's a good tennis game and it just happens to have Mario characters in it. Like, good job for you guys to figure out a tennis game in your Nintendo. You know what I mean? Like, you make really fun platforming games, but you also make really good tennis games. So, good job. I actually, can you just do Mario Golf and Mario Strikers? Because Mario Strikers on GameCube was awesome. Like, that was such a fun game. And yeah, they did one Striker. Maybe it didn't sell well or something, but they did one Strikers game and that was it. So, or just do backward compatibility. That'd be fun.
That too.
Yeah, you could do that. Just remaster it, and yeah, hopefully it wouldn't take much out of you or anything. So, So as far as gaming now, obviously, you can play everything. You can understand everything. So, like, what are your gaming habits like now?
I'm actually starting to play a lot more of the RPGs. Just like I said, I never played God of War, I went ahead and picked up the new God of War game. Played it, loved it. One of the best games that I've played so far this year. Like I said, I also acquired Shadow of Wars, playing Ni no Kuni, playing Skyrim. So I am now starting to fall in love with this RPG genre that's out there. So just playing that right now, that's basically what has taken my time.
It makes sense. I mean, you've done many years of gaming with sports and racing, and you're probably over that shit.
And to be honest, like, I play some of the new ones come out, and to me it's like, really? That's it? That's it? Oh, okay.
To be fair, though, have you played Forza Horizon 3?
The last one I played was Horizon.
Just the first Horizon. Forza Horizon 3 is like flat out incredible. Like, it's just a ridiculous good game. So I can understand though the racing, because I got the same fatigue though with fighting games, because for the longest time I was so into Mortal Kombat. You know, I played the shit out of Mortal Kombat, and then I just started realizing that I'm not good at fighting games, so I stopped playing them for that reason. But no, like, it's awesome that now, because you're able to understand everything, you're able to pick up all these RPGs now. So the only problem with those RPGs is I understand, you know,
long as hell.
They're long as hell, yeah. they're really long. I don't have the fucking time to play an RPG. Like, and that's what I've said before about The Witcher. Fantastic game. Amazing characters, amazing story, amazing graphics, amazing gameplay. I can't fucking play that game because it's like 80 hours long. Like, I can't do it. Some games I've made exceptions for, like, but I haven't put 80 hours into a single player game in a very, very, very long time. Like, I can't do it, man. I got so much shit to play. I can't spend that much time on one game, because now it sucks is like the quote unquote downtime, you know, when like gaming is slow, isn't slow anymore. Like, before it used to be during the summer and right after Christmas. Like, right after Christmas, like January, February, March would be kind of slow, not much coming out. Then March, April, May would kind of pick up. From June till like August, there wasn't shit. There wasn't anything. And then after August, September, October, November, December was packed with all your AAA shit for Christmas, right?
Yep.
Now, fuck it. Kingdom Hearts just got announced for a January release date. Days Gone, Anthem are February release dates. Like, now maybe, like, even yesterday, and just to date us, we're talking before the Microsoft conference, so I'm sure there's shit that might be getting announced for February as well. Crackdown got pushed to February. But now, like, Unravel, which, that little cute Yarny game from EA, platforming game, fun as hell, really cool. By the way, it's awesome because it's only like 5 hours. Good job. But that got announced yesterday, and it came out yesterday, which, by the way, I absolutely love when people do that. That's my favorite shit at E3, when they're like, hey, here's this new thing, and it's downloadable and available right now. I'm like, yes, that's how you get hype. But yeah, Unravel 2 got announced yesterday, adds local co-op, which is awesome for couch co-op, and that game for platforming reasons and stuff, super fun. I can imagine it two people being even more fun. And yeah, it came out same day. So now there's not even a slow time during the summer, because shit's just coming out in June now. And, you know, by the time I blink, it'll be August, and all this other shit's going to be out. So hopefully between now and August, I can get through Far Cry and God of War and State of Decay. Like, hopefully I can get through those, but we'll see. I did see that on your Twitter that you have a YouTube channel. So, like, feel free to promote yourself here. Like, if people wanted to check you out on the internet, check you out online, where would they go for all that?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter or find me on Twitter, it's Picky Gamer Dad all together. For YouTube, it's Picky Gamer Space Dad, and Facebook as well. I have a Facebook group. If you want to look at me there, same thing, Picky Gamer Dad.
And then, of course, I will have links in the show notes for all of the above. So if you guys want to check them out there, you can definitely see that. Dude, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all of your stories with me, man. I really do appreciate it.
Anytime, and thank you for having me.
All right, and again, thank you, Ricky, for being on the show. I really appreciate, guests like that sharing stories that are very different from my past. Obviously growing up in a different country, English being a second language. Those are things I don't think about how they affect gaming until someone brings them up like this. So, again, I really appreciate it. If you guys want to check him out on Twitter, I'll have links in the show notes for everything there. Also, I apologize for any audio issues in there. There were some times where it got sketchy, so I apologize for that. If you guys want to be on the show and share your stories just like he was, go ahead and send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter, or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. We also have the Facebook group, Growing Up Gaming, and you can search on YouTube, GUG Podcast. So feel free to like and subscribe and share with a friend and do all the same nonsense every other person asks you to do. But it's really nice. It gets the word out there, and the more people that hear the show, the more people want to be on the show, and I could always use guests, so feel free to let me know. So thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. Again, I appreciate it, and I will catch you guys next week with another new episode. See ya.